Hello, welcome to the Frontend Masters Hangout for July 2023. I recorded this one from the office. We'll get into that in a second. So in this one, we discuss popular courses on the platform from last month. New courses, new workshops. There's a lot of great audience questions, everything from Fullstack frameworks to fundamentals versus frameworks, to discussion on what to learn to get a job, migrating a site from Gatsby to Astro. And then we cover the industry news, things going on and all the cool new CSS features, VR with the spatial computing stuff, and more. So I hope you enjoy this hangout. Peace.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Marc. I've been really into Frontend Masters for the past 2 years.
Awesome.
Thanks to Frontend Masters, back in my college, I started learning about React from Brian Holt, and I got my first job as a React developer.
That's awesome. Congrats.
I'm currently in Taiwan. I'm basically based out of India, but I got a job here in Taiwan. I've been about 1.5 years of experience. I've been so much into front end and DevOps engineering that I lost my touch on data structures and algorithms. So I'm also wrapping up my skills from the course from, I think, Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle Simpson has a good one, and then also the Primogen has a good one on fundamentals.
So
one of the biggest probably social media posts we did was the top 10 courses from June. So if you have seen on our Frontend Masters Twitter or LinkedIn, we posted the top 10 being complete intro to React, of course, but then JavaScript first steps to functional with Anjana, and JavaScript the hard parts with Will Sentence, and then complete intro to web dev with Brian Holt, and the last algorithms course you'll need with Primogen, and then full stack for front ends with Jem Young, and then the new enterprise UI dev course, deep JavaScript foundations with Kyle Simpson, and TypeScript fundamentals with Mike North, and then the intro to Next with Scott Moss. And honestly, the thing that stuck out to me about this is 7 out of the top 10 courses are deep fundamentals, and that's warms my heart because from the very beginning I've tried to steer the instructors towards things that will live a long time, like knowledge that pays off for your entire career. Of course, it's great to learn the latest tool that you need in your job. Like someone just mentioned at the beginning of the hangout that he got his first React job using Frontend Masters, and that's super important to learn the latest tool because that's going to translate immediately to your getting a job. But when it comes to things that you want to invest in your skills over the long haul, things like learning JavaScript deeply, the language that you're using deeply, learning algorithms, basics of algorithms, basics of sysadmin, basics of TypeScript deeply, like these kinds of things pay off for a very, very long time, potentially your entire career. So definitely warms my heart that people are choosing to really dig into those deep fundamentals, because I think that is really what sets Frontend Masters apart. So that's cool. Let's see what else. There was some success stories posted. Will Thompson on Twitter said he was job ready in 6 months, which was pretty incredible. And he just took our learning paths, went for 6 months as hard as he could on beginner to professional, and was able to land a job apparently in 6 months, and that was really cool. And then Meek on Discord said that he won $2,900 in hackathon prizes, citing the networking course by Substack, which people don't cite very often. I think it's a great course, but he said it helped him understand peer-to-peer connections and streams, first time learning networking concepts like UDP, WebRTC, swarms, sockets, etc. So that's kind of a gem that not a lot of people know about, but so congrats to Meek for taking that knowledge and building a P2P solution and winning a bunch of prizes. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Hello, Marc. Actually, This is the first for me to see you on Hangout for me. So cool. I want really to thank you for the Frontend Master platform. It really educated me a lot, and it helped me to teach actually 135 kids in Gatsby.
Wow.
So I would like to give this achievement for you. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's fantastic.
And I want to ask you one question, actually.
Sure.
As you can see in my picture, I'm a programmer. So there's courses in planned for like problem solving? That's for every interview you have like problem solving questions. So are there any plans for things like that or what?
I think what you're talking about is bigger projects, bigger projects or quizzes or basically challenges, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and it's something that we've been talking about a lot because I think with our platform in particular, people are, well, we've been around for a long time and we focus on that intermediate to advanced demographic. So we have a lot of really talented folks as part of the Frontend Masters community. And I think, yeah, we have a plan for a CSS projects course where there'll be like 3, like a simple, medium, and hard challenge. And then we're excited to see how the community solves those. But I think something larger like a full stack, set of challenges would be really cool because I'm guessing the entire community will have lots of different approaches to solving these things. So it's something we're thinking a lot about. I mean, we're talking about it, and yeah, we haven't quite settled on our approach for projects, but yeah, we're experimenting with Lydia's quiz-based course where it's like interactive, where you're kind of, she's setting up the problem, and then you're able to choose from 4 different answers, so it's like a multiple choice. So we're experimenting with that, and then with the CSS projects course, that will actually be 3 separate projects that you could, in theory, solve them with whatever CSS approach you would like. And I think we would love to do like a JavaScript based one where it's, JavaScript challenges. That would be really, really fun, and I have an idea who could teach that. But then beyond that, there's obviously the full stack challenges where you're, building an API or building a back end around an API and a front end to, say search through that data or whatever. And I think that's the direction that we're going, but I don't think we're going to get there like within the next 6 months, but starting with the CSS projects course, working on the JavaScript projects, and then eventually full stack. So I would say, sorry for the longer answer, but it's something we're thinking about, and I think it would be really, really fun to see what the community could build given a set of challenges that are especially full stack. So
I believe it will be great for the community. No, I think your answer was concise, so thank you so much for the long answer.
Yeah, no problem. All right, I'll continue with the updates. So and feel free, anybody who wants to chime in again. That was cool. Thanks for jumping in. Yeah, so the next update, we're about to launch a mini documentary on The Last Mile is the organization. So they actually teach, it's a coding boot camp, but it's in prisons. And so they teach in the prisons all across the US. There's one in Europe that we also support called Code 2040, but this documentary, John from our team actually flew out to The Last Mile and did some recording interviews and whatnot. And so we pieced that together. That'll be fun because it's such a great organization, but I don't think a lot of people know about The Last Mile. They don't know that it even exists. So the fact that we've been supporting them both financially and with curriculum since 2016, and they've it's great. It's a great program. People, as they return citizens, they call them, they've got a really high job placement. So it's just doing a lot of good. So we've put together a documentary. We'll release that in the coming days. And then, new courses we launched this month. We launched the 2 Svelte courses, so Svelte and SvelteKit with Rich Harris. I've said this before, but people ask me what framework I would choose today, even though I don't use a framework. We don't use a framework on frontendmasters.com. But people always want to know what framework I would choose. And I think at this point I would choose Svelte because I just think it's so cool how it takes whatever features that you use in the framework, and it builds a runtime for only those features. So it doesn't have to ship the whole, kit and caboodle for a framework. It just ships exactly what you use. So I think that's really cool. We launched the Svelte courses, and then the Advanced Web Dev Quiz course, which I mentioned is the first experiment we've had where you get the setup from Lydia, and then it pauses the video, gives you multiple choice, and then you can go and answer and check your answers and that kind of thing, and then get the full explanation. So we've had, just today someone mentioned how they loved that style of course. So we'll definitely do another one in the kind of fall winter time period, specifically on JavaScript. So we'll focus on JavaScript language, quizzes and that kind of thing. Then with the fall winter, you can go to frontendmasters.com/workshops to see everything that we've got coming up. We're kicking it off with product management, which will be fun with Brian Holt because he is now the full-time product manager, and he's gonna teach us that, which is cool. And we've got a bunch of really fun workshops with Steve Kinney. It'll be on Scratch, so teaching kids to code with Scratch, hardware, and an update to Electron. A lot of people have asked about an update to Electron, so he's doing it. And then I mentioned earlier the CSS projects course, so that'll be a set of projects, easy, medium, challenging, and then you'll see Jen's, the way that she'll be able to build the solution, but you'll get all the assets and files so you can build it however you like to and compare on the way that Jen solves it. JavaScript for embedded, also very excited for it. By embedded, do you mean hardware? Yeah, it'll be super fun. Cool. Yeah, and then even Mishko, the creator of Angular, and then now Qwik, he's gonna come teach us how the JavaScript VM works. I'm excited about that. Just have a lot of really cool stuff coming up. If you check on the workshops page, you can see more, and definitely RSVP. You'll get notifications when we go live. And I think even the Prime Engine's going to come back and do a course on JavaScript performance. And then he's debating on scheduling another one. I think there's he's currently super hyped about HTMX, so we'll see if he ends up doing a workshop on that. But he's coming back this fall, so there's a lot of really exciting stuff. I'm kind of in an embarrassment of riches at this point with the quality of proposals for the fall and winter, so I can't record everything. We only have, I'm in the studio here, but we record everything in person. Our whole staff is here. We make sure that every workshop turns into an amazing course. So we only have limited capacity, right? And so I feel like 2023 has been the year where just the quality of proposals and the amount of proposals has just gone way up. So a lot of demand from the teachers. So it's definitely exciting to work with the teachers and pick through what we could potentially record. But I wish I could record it all. Sometimes it's hard to find tasks for exercises from the workshops. Is it possible to ask teachers for some advice for some materials or ways to exercise the topic? Okay, I'm not sure exactly how to address this question. So he's saying that exercises can sometimes be difficult to find the materials for. I think most courses at this point have a course website, documentation website that goes along with the course. We've tried to push instructors where it's basically the course, but in written format, and all of the exercises are there. So if there's a particular course that you're having difficulty with or can't find the exercises for or are having trouble with, feel free to email us at support@frontendmasters.com for sure, or there's in the player, there's like a little bullhorn icon on the top right, and you can feel free to submit if anything's confusing or you can't find anything there. Yeah, those would be the two ways to do it, because we're actively listening, always updating our courses. Dustin is in the hangout right now, and he is part of the team that, if you have any issues, dives into each one of those. And a lot of that, if there are any issues, a lot of the things that are resolved end up back into the course, either updating the documentation, updating an annotation. We have those annotations that pop up in the video. So our courses are all actively being maintained, and we've gone through, I want to say, close to 1,000 issues, this year alone on the courses, maintaining everything. So yeah, feel free to, if anything's difficult to find or you get stuck or whatever, feel free to send us some feedback on the course. So that's it for Frontend Masters news in June. Here's another question before I get on to the industry news. How do you keep up with the major changes and the technologies themselves? So I'm not sure if you're asking Frontend Masters or you in that question, but I can tell you what we do, and yeah, you can feel free to, if you want additional clarification, I can go through that. But with Frontend Masters itself, the way that we look at it is, I want at least a third of what we record to be something of like a timeless skill set. So fundamentals, right? The basics of algorithms is never going to change. So if we record an amazing course like we did with the Primogen on the last algorithms course you'll ever need, like that is timeless material. That's not going to go out of date, right? The tools you use, TypeScript is pretty solid as far as like he just uses the very basics of TypeScript and whatnot. That is our perspective on a lot of our courses. So I mentioned our top 10 courses, 7 out of 10 are deep fundamentals. So deep JavaScript foundations, that was recorded for like over 4 years ago, and Kyle says like, I don't want to record an update to that one because it's exactly what I would say today. It's the only things that have evolved in JavaScript. There's some additional features, but everything that he discusses is the fundamentals, and he goes deep into the fundamentals, and none of those are going to change. Like basic syntax might change, like we have now since in the last 4 years. We've got things like nullish coalescence, or the question mark operator, these kinds of things. Like those are additional things. Like if you learn JavaScript deeply, then all of these other features they're adding to JavaScript are just syntax on top of the basics. So the idea is we record things that are timeless as much as we can. Things like deep JavaScript fundamentals, algorithm, all of the things that I mentioned that are super popular on our platform. Basics of sysadmin, setting up servers, securing them, etc., SSH keys. These kinds of things aren't going to go out of date. Like if you invest in one of those 7 out of the top 10 courses, like none of that material is going to go out of date. I think if we have a better idea of how to teach it, or for instance, we upgrade it to 4K, these are reasons to upgrade or update our fundamentals courses. But for instance, Intro to Web Dev, complete Intro to Web Dev, version 1 even that we recorded 8 years ago is still valid because it's just the basics. But we did, complete Intro to Web Dev V2 and then one V3, but these were like 3-4 years apart. Like I said, we've been around for over a decade. So there are certain things like algorithms, basics of sysadmin, the way, all of the topics that I just mentioned, like none of those 7 out of 10 are going out of date, because once you learn the fundamentals, then it's just like additional syntax in JavaScript that'll change. Or, TypeScript, yes, it evolves and we have new keywords and these kinds of things that will eventually, I think our TypeScript course, we're going to do a revamp now finally, but it's like multiple years later because the fundamental aspects of TypeScript haven't changed. They've added additional little features that can make quality of life improvements, but there's not been like a huge thing that has completely made the existing courses out of date. So that's the way we look at it. It's like at least a third of our courses should be these kind of evergreen topics that we just make amazing high quality courses. They're going to last a very long time. Then when it comes to another third of the courses, which are, frameworks and these kinds of things, I tend to think of those a little bit different. Those are things that, for instance, React was evolving incredibly fast. Every single version was a massive change. We went from class-based, classes to class-based components to, hooks and yada, 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 where the entire React ecosystem, it seemed like rewrote its code over and over again every 6 months. And so we did an update every 6 months. So we had complete intro to React 1 all the way through version 8 now. We have complete intro to React version 8 right now. That's 8 of the exact course, but completely revamped based on, the tools. Like, for instance, React Query is in complete intro to React 8. And that, before I think it used Axios or whatever. Like, the community evolves, the tools that they use evolves in the framework ecosystem much, much faster. So we recorded version 1 of Intro to Web Dev, probably over 10 years ago. And then the version 1 of Complete Intro to React, I think was maybe like 6 years ago. We've done 8 courses in the amount of time that we've only done 3 in the fundamentals. And that's just how it works. It's like, we don't need to do a whole lot of revamps of version 1 through version 10 of just JavaScript fundamentals, because that doesn't change as fast as, for instance, now we've done, I think, 3 versions of the Intro to Next course, and we just, they moved from file-based routing to now this app router. And so we have to, similar to the React days where we had to record a React course every 6 months, now it seems like we have to record a Next.js course every 6 months. So there are definitely ecosystems of frameworks that move much, much faster. Community chooses different tools, whereas there are, Svelte, we've only done 2 versions of the course, and frankly, the old version was still, the framework itself didn't change that much. In the version 3 to version 4, it didn't change that much. So they're a much more, I feel like, stable framework. And the thing that changed there was SvelteKit, right? So SvelteKit came out, and so Rich wanted to do a complete, intro to SvelteKit, and I'm sure that will change quite a lot. But there are areas that are changing frequently that we have to do courses very, very, often to keep them up to date, whereas there are, deep fundamentals that are going to live forever. And then there's a bucket of courses that we do that are just completely experimental, right? And, in this case, things around, AI, and I think we've done, we do, obviously we'll do hardware and Scratch, and we did fun things with, creative coding, and those are like experimental topics that are not going to be super, super popular, but they're fun, and we should try experimenting with new courses and new emerging topics. I think Astro, I would put that in that bucket. Yeah, it's, I would say, fairly mature, I guess, but it's also pretty new. So we don't know if, Astro is going to be the next big thing. I have no idea, but it's fun to do an Astro course. It's a good tool. I migrated my website to it. So that's kind of how we think about it. It's deep fundamental courses will last. They could last 4 years. They could last 6 years. They could last 8 years. Who knows? And only until we know we have a much better way of revamping that course will we do it. So I think, maybe that was a medium long answer, but I think hopefully that gives some clarity on how I think about that.
So much over your time, but in a nutshell, how was your experience using Astro rebuilding your website compared to what technology you used before, or the tech stack?
Yeah, so I'm not really using much from Astro. I thought it was fine. Like, I think if I could go back in time, I would have told myself to just build it in 11T a long time ago, because 11D has been there for a lot longer. But my website's just like a couple of token blog posts on, my career. It's like a personal journal, basically, or career journal. And yeah, it was in Gatsby, because I just wanted to play with the latest tool in the ecosystem, and now the latest tool is Astro, right? So I migrated from Gatsby to Astro, and yeah, it's a lot simpler. It's just markdown files. It's the right tool for the job when it comes to building a static website. I think Astro is much simpler, because Gatsby had this whole GraphQL layer, and I think people have talked about it being useful if you have multiple data sources and you want a GraphQL layer that you're picking from to build your website. Like, that makes a lot of sense with Gatsby and GraphQL. But in my case, I just found GraphQL to just be a complete overhead for no reason. So the fact that Astro, I could just essentially loop through all my markdown files and spit out pages, I think it was a better dev experience. But is it better than 11D? I'm not sure. The appeal of Astro is the fact that you can more easily use frameworks with it and that kind of thing. But I'm not using any of those features. Like, I'm not using really any JavaScript whatsoever. I'm basically just taking Markdown and spitting out pages for my personal website. So, yeah.
Right. So it's basically like emulating like an SSR or SSG.
Yeah.
Is your data source SQL?
No, it's just Markdown files. It's like a static site builder kind of situation, just like Gatsby.
Way simpler than Gatsby. Yeah.
Yeah, way simpler. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can go to my GitHub if you want to see the source code for the Astro site.
For sure.
But it's way simpler. Like Gatsby, it was like, here's your markdown files, build it to like this GraphQL thing, and then pull from the GraphQL into your templates. And I just found that whole GraphQL layer to be completely nonsense for what I was doing anyway.
So like, whole system design gets much more complex, right?
Right. Yeah. So for simple websites, I like Astro. They say that like you can actually have like a full node instance where you can build apps with Astro. I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but at this point I just needed a static website for my personal journal, right? And so Astro is a good fit there.
That's really cool. How does it compare with the other one, Qwik?
Yeah, Qwik is a full stack framework, similar to like more like Svelte and SvelteKit, React and Next.js. Like there's
I see.
Qwik and Qwik City. Qwik City is their backend or whatever, and so yeah, it's like a full front end suite, front end back end suite, right? So that's this weird world that we've kind of entered into, where front end is trying to become
back end.
Yeah, back end.
And like even middleware, right? Like
Right. Yeah, and it makes it pretty difficult, I feel like, as an educator. Before there was this clean line between like teaching a back end language, teaching a front end framework, and now like like Rich, he stated that he wanted SvelteKit to be a real alternative to something like Laravel or Rails, and obviously it's nowhere near that right now, but that's their vision. So I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll see.
It makes like job hunting difficult, right? Because HR doesn't really know the difference between each one. And so like you get, postings, the JD is like listing every technology with 5 years of experience. And I'm just like, what? Like,
yeah, it's a weird world where, there was clean lines, but, we have courses by, Rich created it, of course. And, people seem to be having a lot of success with Next.js. So we're going to continue to be putting out the best material for these things.
What do you prefer, Remix or Next.js?
You're asking me personally, because like we have Ken C. Dodds teaching Remix, so we have awesome Remix material. The Next.js is Scott Moss, and I would defer to them with what is better. Yeah, I would defer to what it seems like Next.js is getting a lot more traction. So if like from the perspective of learning a tool to potentially take to a job, obviously Next.js is the one to learn when it comes to, wide scale use. It seems to have a lot more traction. I don't even really, it's like, my perspective is keep the back end as simple as possible, keep the front end as simple as possible. But yeah, when I look at approaches, I resonate more with something like Lit's approach, which is keep JavaScript as small as possible and tight, components, or HTMX is a cool new experiment. Or, well, I don't know. I mean, it seems to be getting more traction, but yeah, that's my particular approach, right? So if you're going to ask me personally, I want to keep dependencies as small as possible. And, to me, that's not React and the React ecosystem of tons and tons of modules and dependencies. And I know there's a lot of headway being made there and whatnot, but yeah, I mean, personally, my dev philosophy is just keep it as simple as possible, just HTML and vanilla JavaScript as much as possible. So yeah.
So what I'm hearing is like, I completely agree with your philosophy of development, simple to complex until it breaks, and then But for employment, it seems like you're implying learn the most widely used tools.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you want to get your goal is to make money, which part of software development, that's why we're here. We however much of your motivation is that you love software versus you want to make a good living, like, I don't have any opinions there, like what is better, but obviously, like, I love software development, and that's why I got into it. And then it turns out, I was able to make a career of it and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, when it comes to getting a job, like if the company you want to work for and they're using React, you might as well become the best at React, regardless of what your dev philosophy is. At the end of the day, I don't necessarily care what tool I'm using as long as I'm able to do the job. There's been, as a consultant, I've updated, Angular code and React code and all sorts of stuff, right? But like, if I'm going to build a project, obviously I'm going to just choose, HTML and vanilla JavaScript as much as possible. But yeah, when it comes to like when I was a consultant, I would apply solid fundamentals to what's going on the screen. Why is React re-rendering in a weird way? If I know that tool really well, then I'm going to be able to debug those sorts of issues. And then, it doesn't matter what environment I'm in, I'm going to be valuable. So I think that's the approach to take with these things. It's like you can have your personal preference, like I do for Frontend Masters as a platform. I love the deep fundamentals. I think that's paid off the most in my career. So I have that slant, but at the same time, like, you have to be a realist. Like, if the most widely used development ecosystem is React, then you might as well learn it well, because there are there are situations, there are job opportunities that, are good opportunities that you want to, your goal should be to add value and be pragmatic about things wherever you are, rather than dogmatic. I feel, anyways. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, Marc. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And then we have someone in chat asking if I'm working on my course. I've had no time, but hopefully I've been sketching more notes like as I get time, and I definitely need to do more writing. Obviously, I have the to do MVC vanilla JavaScript thing, and there's some components on there of how we built some of our components at Frontend Masters. But yeah, The answer is no. I've made a little progress, but I would love to be able to get some more time. I don't know when. I don't know when I'm gonna get time to sketch those ideas out. But I know people are looking for it. So, but I am looking at HTMX because I think it's interesting that they're using data attributes to drive a lot of the behavior of the website, and in some ways that ties in with my dev philosophy, which is, if you build these small components and you hook into data attributes, you can do a lot. Yeah, you can do a lot, because then you can just describe what you want to do declaratively with data attributes, and then, it just does it. For instance, like, yeah, our little like learning path icons that rev up and down, all you have to do for that is just to add a data attribute of what the current progress is, and it'll just read it and animate to it. And so it's, in that way, declarative programming with vanilla JavaScript, because you can just describe what you want it to do with data attributes, and you hook into that by just using a selector. But yeah, so no, I haven't made a lot of progress, but hoping to add some time on my calendar in the coming months to be able to focus on it. All right, let's move on to industry news after I have a drink of water. Thanks all for the discussion. This has been really fun. All right, so for industry news that's happened in the last month, the State of CSS survey is out, or it's open, so definitely go check that out. So go drop your thoughts in there. My personal favorite thing I've ran into is this podcast called Just a Spec, and I actually don't know these folks at all, so shout out to them for just making a really good start to a podcast. I think they're only like 3 episodes in or something like that. So yeah, shout out to Just a Spec podcast. The latest episode, I just listened to it, I think yesterday. It was on like HTML tags that are obscure but useful, and there were some really good ones in there. I think one I liked, they mentioned the Marc tag, so it's a way to highlight text. You can use wrap instead of like only using bold or italics, or anywhere you would do like span class equals highlight. Instead, use the Marc tag. I thought that was pretty clever and cool. I didn't even know that existed. And there's some other really good tags in there, like that are underutilized, like details and summary and etc. So yeah, go check out Just a Spec podcast. I don't see a lot of people talking about it, so I wanted to give a shout out. So, and then Chris Coyier talked about 5 things that we have in modern CSS, and he has got a good article. The CSS king himself. I love that he's blogging more. But yeah, the 5 he goes through are logical properties. I think this is cool because instead of saying that it needs to be, say a certain amount of ems or pixels or whatever from the left, you would say from the start, and then that way it allows languages that are right to left, etc., to work. So it's a set of things that allow our sites to be more, international for, if it's translated to other languages, etc., right to left languages and things like that. So logical properties are cool. Let's see what some of the other ones. Container queries, of course. So being able to have components that, based on where they put in the page, the size of the actual container versus the size of the window, that's going to change things a lot. And then there's like a new color spectrum called oklch, which is cool. So we can now express web design with a lot of new colors that weren't available to us before. That's pretty awesome. And then the view transitions API is pretty sweet. I know Dustin had an experiment of running frontendmasters.com with view transitions, and yeah, his experiments look pretty sweet. Ability to take something that's normally a multi-page application or website and make it more app feeling, being able to transition between pages instead of having the full page refresh. I think that's really cool. And then he also covered CSS layers. So I think people are just wrapping around their heads around what they can use CSS layers for, but I think like having the framework CSS or whatever, say you have a design system, you can put all of that CSS in one layer and then easily override your, you know, CSS properties with a new layer. So I think that's pretty cool. And then I love this unsuckjs.com. I think it's a really cool list of micro libraries, lightweight libraries that kind of enhance HTML or, you know, making things more dynamic, but without the heavy, you know, npm installing the entire state of the world kind of approach. They're smaller libraries that do a lot of the reactivity. And so I mentioned that we use lit HTML in a few of our components in Frontend Masters, and yeah, it's a cool library, but yeah, the rest of it's vanilla JavaScript. So Apple's Webkit team had a big update where you can actually one-click install websites as apps, as native apps, and they don't even have to have a manifest and be PWA accessible and that kind of thing. Apparently you can just install any website, which is pretty cool. But yeah, if you do have the manifest and the service workers and all that kind of stuff for a PWA, it'll respect all of that stuff. But it's cool. Websites can become apps that much easier. And then there was the whole like Apple Vision Pro, and I didn't dig too much into this, but I will say that being an avid user of VR for many, many years, I mean, I was a pro VR gamer during the pandemic. I went VR heavy. I think with any of that, with, you know, the Vision Pro being AR, whatever, you know, the problem is always content. Like, what content is actually going to fit this new hardware device? Like, what is going to make me actually want to buy it? And then when I have it, what's going to make me actually pick it up and put it on? And the reality is all of the content is on the internet. All the content is on the web. So I just imagine websites, you know, obviously we've got phones and we use the mobile web more and more, you know, tons of websites. We had the whole concept of responsive design, and we made everything accessible, you know, through the phone. So I think VR has a problem with content, and it doesn't have a great web browsing experience. So it'll be interesting to see if the new Vision Pro actually embraces the web and allows that web content to, you know, show up, because it's, you know, primarily what people do with devices. They use a couple of native apps and they use the web browser. So yeah, at the end of the day, the web is the most amazing platform. It reaches all devices. So whether, you know, Vision Pro or whatever device comes out, I think it's just awesome that we as web developers can continue to reach more and more devices and all sorts of stuff. So I think that's it. So if you want more industry news, I'll definitely be posting the full front end to Fullstack newsletter, issue number 3. That'll go out to, you know, anyone who's been a member in the past, as well as if you go to frontendmasters.com/trial. If you're not a customer and you want to check out our courses, go to frontendmasters.com/trial. We have 5 free courses there, and then that'll get you onto our newsletter sign up as well. So, well, with that, thanks everybody for joining us for the July Hangout. It was a lot of fun. All right, well, thanks everybody for joining. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.